I've been on the hunt for a decent navigation system recently. I've been looking at phone mounts, GPS units, and pretty much anything in between. Up until now I've just been using Google Maps on my phone, I put my phone in my jacket, and then I just listen to the directions through my headset. But I have got lost a couple times while doing this, especially in town when there's lots of turns one after the other. Using your phone as a satnav and mounting it to the bike is a very popular option, but it does have pros and cons. So here are some things to consider if you're looking at using your phone as a navigation device. We'll start with some of the positives, and this is probably one of the simplest options. Everyone these days has a phone with GPS built in, so you don't need to buy a standalone satnav if you don't want to. It's very clean, you don't have to hardwire anything into your bike, but if you want to be able to charge your phone as you ride, you can do that as well. They're also very easy to mount and remove, so if you have multiple bikes that you like to swap between, you can do that fairly quickly. You're not restricted to using the maps or the route planning app that comes on your satnav, since you can download any app that you want. This also tends to be a lot cheaper than buying a GPS unit, even if you buy a really high-end phone mount. A GPS unit will probably cost between £200 to £400 depending on which one you go for, whereas a phone mount can cost anywhere from £10 for a cheap one, up to maybe £70 or £80 for a higher end one. I spent £70 on this Ultimate Add-ons mount and case, which wasn't cheap, but it seems pretty good so far. I'll make a full review of it once I've used it a little bit more. I really do recommend spending the extra money to get a really good phone mount. I've heard way too many stories of phones being lost. You might save £40 by buying a cheaper mount, but you lose a £500 phone down the motorway. But using your phone as a satnav is really not a perfect system, and I do think standalone satnavs still have a place for the following reasons. The first is damage. Vibrations from the road have been known to cause damage to phone cameras, and this is another reason to get a really good phone mount with a vibration dampener. You can buy a cheap phone mount, but then you break a really expensive phone, so it's false economy. A lot of phone mount brands are bringing out vibration dampeners either built into the mount, or you buy them as an additional add-on. For me, this is a major reason why I'm still going to avoid putting my phone on the bars for all but the most complicated journeys. The weather can also damage your phone even if it's rated waterproof or dustproof. My phone isn't rated for either of these, so I needed a case that could protect it. But honestly, even if my phone was waterproof, I'd probably still avoid using it as a satnav in the rain, just to protect it in the long run. But the main reason I won't use my phone as a satnav for longer journeys is the battery. When the screen is on, you're using the GPS, you only have a few hours of navigation before it dies. And once it dies, you've lost access to navigation, phone calls, anything that you need your phone for. If your bike is capable, you can mount a phone charger or a 12-volt accessory socket, and then you can charge your phone as you ride. But it costs money to do this. You might find by the time you've added on vibration dampeners, chargers, you might be spending as much as you would spend just buying maybe an older GPS unit. Mounting can be a bit of an issue as well. A lot of times you have to buy a specific case to put your phone in, and then you mount that case to the mounting system. If you have a popular phone like an iPhone or a higher end Samsung Galaxy phone, you won't have a problem, but they don't make specific cases for my Samsung. I'm left having to buy a universal case, which it works well, but it doesn't work as well as having a specific case for my model. I also have to remove the case that I keep my phone in usually to put it in the phone mount, which is a bit inconvenient, but it's not the end of the world. When you're mounting the phone, you need to really think about where you're going to mount it. In the video, it looks like I have a really nice space here to put my phone on, but in reality I can't see that in my peripheral vision. I can see to about here, so anything below that means that I have to take my eyes off the road to look at the phone screen. I bought a mirror stem mount for my phone instead, so I've got it mounted to my left mirror. It looks a bit weird in the video, but in real life all I have to do is flick my eyes to the left a little bit and I can still see the road and I can look at my phone screen. I think eventually I will buy a dedicated satnav, probably one of the Garmin ones, but I'm going to wait until it makes sense to because they're quite expensive. For example, if I'm going to be riding for really long, maybe 4 or 5 hours at a time, my phone battery won't last that long and I don't want to spend the money fitting a charger to my bike when I can just buy a satnav and hardwire that. The Garmin that I saw uses the RAM mount system and my phone mount uses basically a copy of that. So in the future, if I decide to buy a Garmin satnav, I should just be able to take my phone off, put the satnav on, and start riding. I do think satnavs still really do have a place for longer journeys because of the battery and the vibration issues that I mentioned. But for shorter journeys and in-town riding, I think a phone mount will probably do fine. There is one kind of in-between option, that's the Beeline system. It's basically just a little screen that you fit to your bike, you connect it to your phone, use the map on your phone, and it will display your next turn. I think it's a really good solution for in-town riding because you don't have to have your phone on the bars, but all you really need to be able to see is your next turn coming up. But I didn't buy the Beeline system because I have two major issues with it. The first is the price. The basic one costs you £150, and if you want to get a metal one it costs you £200. That's a lot of money for a device that doesn't even have GPS built in. You just connect it to your phone through Bluetooth and it's relying on that for its navigation. So you're basically paying £150 to £200 for a separate screen for your phone. It doesn't solve the problem of not being able to navigate when your phone battery dies or when you don't have phone signal. The other major problem I have with it is it doesn't have turn-by-turn navigation, so as you're riding you can't listen to when your next direction is coming up, you'll just see an arrow on the screen. I've spent so long listening to directions that I've got used to it and I like navigating like that. So to not have it in a system that cost me £150 is a deal breaker for me. But that's a bit of a side note. The main thing for me is I think that you can use your phone as a navigation device for shorter journeys, but for longer journeys you're probably going to have a bit of a problem with the battery, and if you're not in phone signal range you're going to have to find some other way to navigate. So I think if I want to do some touring like I want to do this year, I'll probably end up buying a GPS system eventually, but for now I'm using this phone mount and it seems pretty good for what I want it for. Let me know how you guys navigate if you use a phone mount or a GPS or something completely different. Safe riding, and I'll see you in the next one.